Arguably the best Asian dogfighter, Zero Fuzzy Zero, uploaded a new video where he explains some dogfight maneuvers. Sadly, all of this is in Chinese and on bilibili, so I've taken the liberty to translate this into English. Keep in mind, some of the information will be lost in translation. I'll try my best to correct this. Let's get straight to the actual combat video explanation. This video is quite detailed, please watch it patiently. First, the question about the opponent. Here, I advise all newbies to develop the habit of using rear cam. The rear cam can be effective to help us identify the direction of the enemy aircraft after the intersection. Here we see through the rear view cam. After the enemy aircraft crossed, they did not choose to pull up at an angle. Instead, they took the horizontal route. So at this time, we must also take a horizontal route and follow the enemy aircraft closely. Here, we briefly reverse the rudder to reduce the radius of the circle, so that we can expand our advantages in the future. From here, we can just straighten the rudder and return to the opposite route. At this time, both warriors are in a balance of power, and neither can defeat the other. Here we found out by looking up that the other party chose to pull up in exchange for the head advantage. So, just like the previous operation, briefly reverse the rudder and straighten the rudder to maintain the balance. Looking up here, we found that we were in the inner circle of the enemy aircraft. At this time, if we want to maintain the advantage of the inner circle of the enemy aircraft, we must press deceleration, return the rudder, and then point the nose of the plane to the white line of the other party's wake. Here we find that due to a strong power and maneuverability of the Western Front aircraft, we have an advantage. Basically, the circle around the enemy aircraft is very large and the distance is very far. Just like the process just now, the Pacific aircraft may not have a window. However, the Spitfire on the opposite side already has a firing window. So, how can we avoid or reduce the enemy aircraft shooting window? Yes, we found that our altitude is closer to the ground. We can use the terrain to our advantage to avoid the opposite team's shooting window. At this time, we roll left and then return the correct rudder. At this time, we found that we had a large shooting window. We just kept the rudder straight and aimed at the window of the enemy aircraft. Because the VB's cannon urine is forked and falling seriously, I didn't touch the enemy aircraft. If you switch to the VP and have rockets, you can directly deal critical damage here. Here we find that the enemy aircraft wants to counter-attack by using low yo-yo, so we briefly retrace to keep distance. Here we find that the enemy aircraft did not turn back but chose to pull away, so we have the advantage. We found that we were in the inner circle of the enemy aircraft. So here we need to aim the nose of the plane at the enemy's forward route, keeping us centered in the inner circle. We need to look up from time to time to observe the enemy plane's route as to make a judgment. At this point, we can cut into the enemy aircraft's flight path. Then we get another wave of shooting. Here we have two routes to take. The route in the lower right corner can get the shooting window faster. The route in the upper left corner can follow the enemy aircraft more steadily. Players like me, Fuzzy, who are not strong in retirement, prefer to go to the upper left corner. The operation process here is similar to the previous one. How should we proceed in a situation like this? At this point, we just need to click to slow down and return the rudder and roll left. At this point in time, the enemy plane did not fly to the left but flew down yo-yo. At this point, our operation process is similar to the previous one. Click to slow down and return to the white line position of the enemy aircraft. At this time, we have the shooting window again. Same as previous operation. At this time we found that the enemy plane was flying to the left. In this case, we will definitely enter the deceleration scissors stage. Entered this intersection. At this time we need to press the deceleration button to prevent overshooting. At this intersection angle, we directly use vertical scissors, in between brackets, reverse buckle. You must slow down here and touch the window. At this time we need to control the speed and keep distance from the opponent. In the next few windows we can basically defeat the enemy aircraft. The back is basically the advantage position. I'm presuming he means 6 with back. You can see that the circle of the western front aircraft is really big. Dealing with loops is actually very simple. We only need to do 2 things. First, maintain the same posture as the enemy aircraft. Second, the nose of the aircraft is pointed at the inner and outer circle of the enemy aircraft. Then someone asked, why didn't the nose of the plane follow the enemy plane's wake? In fact, most loops are adjusted by rudder and roll. This is what I do. So we have to use 2 maneuvers of front and rear. Pay attention. Here I am always above the enemy plane's windows. This is the front maneuver. Rear maneuver. I am always at the tail of the enemy plane. That is, the 6 o'clock position following the enemy aircraft. This episode ends here. Thank you for watching. I will play the full clip below, including dual perspectives. Okay, so the rest of the video, this is Yuvakio by the way, he just gives like split screen dogfights. If you want to watch it, I'll be sure to link the original bilibili link, so you're gonna have to make an account in the description. It's basically just like a split screen EU dogfights. There's not really much to learn from that. Alright, thank you guys.